Well, good afternoon. So delighted that you have chosen to spend the next hour and a half to two here at the Umatilla Seventh-day Adventist Church. And you have been, you saw the advertising somewhere. How did you get here? Did you see the flyer in the paper? Did you get an email? Email? Anyone else email? Invitation? How'd you folks hear about it?
Church.
From church? Awesome. And church? Church? How did you folks hear about it? Church? And a gas station. Awesome. Thank you, whoever put that in the gas station. That's awesome. I'm so happy that you folks have decided to come. It's a great topic, especially as January sort of wanes to the end of January. And here we are. All those resolutions that we made, they were just almost like a bad dream, you know. We haven't been doing that well. So Dr. DeRose is going to come and save the day. He's going to come and share with us awesome message, Changing Bad Habits for Good. And if you saw the flyer, he's going to address those issues. But Dr. DeRose is a physician who's a board certified in internal medicine and preventive medicine. He holds a master's degree in public health. And he's a published scientist. He's published scientific research, and he's known for his ability to make complex subjects easy to understand. And he is speaking at a number of different venues, and we'll let you know about those later. And if we don't have your email address, I can email that to you as well. And you can, and the other locations, my wife and her sister went to the DeBarry Orange City venue yesterday. It was a presentation last evening on the same topic, and they were totally delighted. They really enjoyed your presentation. So thank you, Dr. DeRose, for not only entertaining them, but giving them some really good quality information that will help them in making good choices as the year progresses. So we are really delighted. He's an author, and you will see at the end of the presentation, his wife Sonia is here with him as well, and he's spending over a week, about 9 days? About a week in different venues, speaking on different topics. So if you want to, say for instance, he's going to be speaking at Mount Dora, and I'll have that information for you, I'll tell you later, the specific times, but you're going to enjoy the fact that you can come. Leesburg is going to be doing a topic. Mount Dora is going to be talking about the immune system, especially these days with COVID-19, and people want to know how to, reduce their risk, and that is to increase your potential of fighting that virus with your immune system. So he's going to talk about that next week as well. So we're delighted that you're here, and for our home audience, we want to thank you also for tuning in today. And if you're watching this at a later time, we're happy that you are able to join us. So let's just have a prayer, ask the Lord to bless our time together and open our minds and help us to learn what we need to learn to be more effective and healthier people. Precious Lord, we're so thankful today for your amazing love for your children. And we know that faith strengthens our immune system. It makes us happier. It makes us, this gives us energy and hope and love. And so, Lord, we're thankful that you're here. You give us power to change our bad habits. And but we need some strategies as well, and we're thankful that you have sent Dr. DeRose here to give us enlightenment so that we can do a better job in living a life that would honor and glorify you. We thank you, Lord, for being here with us now, and guide and direct, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Dr. DeRose, welcome. And if you want to give us a little bit more background on yourself, we'd be delighted to hear.
Well, it is good to be with you, and appreciate each of you coming out. I know these are challenging times, but we've got a lot of interesting things that we can share together about this afternoon. Well, you want to hear about my background? I'll tell you a story then. It's a true story. It's a true story, as far as I can remember, because it happened many, many years ago. I won't tell you how many years ago, but I will tell you I was about 8 or 10 years of age at the time. And on that particular night, when I was sure that everything was very quiet in the DeRose household, I slipped out of bed. I was sure everyone was asleep, and I decided that I would sneak across my bedroom, first of all, because I shared the room with my brother, Steve. After I passed Steve's bed, I walked out into the hallway, and then I started walking down the stairs. There was a particular room in the DeRose household that I was anxious to visit. It was the kitchen. For you see, in the kitchen of the DeRose household, there was a large metal canister. And so it was that night. I made my way through the living room and then into the kitchen, and there it was, the cookie jar. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with metal cookie jars and tried to sneak into cookie jars. But I learned as a young boy, if I was going to sneak into the cookie jar, I had to do it ever so carefully. And so I lifted the lid off the jar. I reached in. David, what are you doing in the cookie jar? I jumped too. It was Mom. Mom had caught me reaching into the cookie jar. And she gave me a message that went something like this: David, don't you know that eating cookies in the middle of the night is not good for you? Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but in my mind, a connection was developing. Tastes good, bad for me. Now, in that very same DeRose household, I had 2 parents, and they both loved me very much. By all indications, they still do. They're actually here in Florida, even though we live in northern Indiana. So before we started our lecturing series down here, we stopped off in the Villages, which is where my folks call home, and they still were very loving and kind to me. But as a child, some of the ways that they expressed their love, I didn't necessarily appreciate it. One of them was my mom she'd make these green leafy vegetables. And I'm trying to tell you about them as, with all the enthusiasm I had as a young boy. You understand? I mean, now I really like green leafy vegetables. So if you invited me to your home and you had some kale or collard greens, I would probably take several servings. But I'll tell you then, as a little boy, I was doing really well just to kind of move them around my plate. But sooner or later, my father would turn to me. And he would say something like this: David, eat those greens. They're good for you. Again, I didn't realize it. But at the time, another connection was developing in my brain. Tastes bad, good for me. Now, some of you laugh because I think you can relate. Most of us, it seems, we've grown up with a mindset that there is a group of things that are enjoyable but harmful. And then the things that are healthy are, often we attach adjectives like dull and boring and maybe even yuck, okay? So the whole point is, it seems like as we get started in life, we somehow think, well, if we're going to be happy, we have to choose some things that are unhealthy. Well, the question is that true? Because we're talking about changing bad habits for good. And the question really is, do we have to choose between being happy and being healthy? Well, the question is, what does the medical research show? Some years ago, I had the privilege of speaking for the National Wellness Conference. That year it was at Stevens Point, University of Wisconsin, and one of the other speakers was Dr. Lester Breslow. Now, I don't want to give you the wrong idea. Dr. Breslow was one of the giants in preventive medicine research. He was one of the keynote speakers. I was in one of those little breakout sessions, okay? I don't want you to misunderstand my standing in the medical community. But Dr. Breslow had done in the 60s, he began in the 60s to do an amazing study. But I learned there, as I met with Lester, I had an opportunity to personally talk with him, he's now deceased, and also to hear him present to the group, the amazing background of what's often called the Alameda County Health Study. So here's what happened. Back in the 60s, Breslow was heading up the California Department of Health. He was the health director for the state of California. He was a physician with a preventive medicine focus. And Breslow had an idea in the 60s that was totally revolutionary. I'm not going to tell you the idea. I want to illustrate how revolutionary it was because he told us the story. He said he had this idea. He wanted to do this study, and so he reached out to the National Institutes of Health. So they fund, cutting-edge research. And back in those days, they weren't so concerned about conflicts of interest and social improprieties, and they would just come out to a researcher and they'd visit with him, they'd meet his team, they'd eat meals together, they'd socialize. And so it was, as Breslow told the story. NIH researchers out there visiting with him and his team for 3 days. At the end of 3 days, they said, Breslow, you're crazy. We're not going to give you a penny for this research. Well, what was the research that was so crazy? What was this idea that the top scientists in the country said was foolish? Breslow back in the 60s had this belief that if you looked at how a person lived, you could predict how they would die. Now today you say, well, that's so obvious. Sure, what you do, how you eat, how you live, it's going to affect your longevity, it's going to affect your health. Back then this was revolutionary because it was an era. Some of you were alive in the 60s. Others of you read about it. Others of you think it's just the subject of fiction. But there really was a time called the 1960s. And in the 60s, basically, science was going to conquer everything. After all, we were in a race for the moon, right? We were going to get to the moon. Medical science was going to conquer everything. In fact, it wasn't long after the 60s that Richard Nixon declared his war on cancer. We were going to wipe out cancer. We're going to conquer everything through technology. It really had nothing to do with how you were living. By the way, back then in the early 60s, people were smoking like chimneys, and it was advertised on the media broadly, okay? The Surgeon General had not yet written his report where tobacco smoking and cancer were linked. So this is the context, okay? All these things that we just take for granted. And so the NIH said, no way, Breslow, we're not giving you a penny. But fortunately, for the cause of medical science, a few years later, researchers from the National Cancer Institute said, Breslow, are you still interested in doing this research? We want to fund it. And they did. After about 10 years, it was 1970, thereabouts, Breslow published his first paper, followed a group of some 7,000 people in the Bay Area of California, Alameda County, for a decade, nearly a decade. And they found something amazing. If you just asked about 7 simple health habits, you could predict whether someone was likely to die or likely to survive. In fact, if you weren't doing any of these 7 health habits, your likelihood of dying over a 9 or 10 year period was roughly 2 to 4 times that of individuals who were following most of those habits. Now you say, well, what were those habits? I mean, they're not surprising today. They were things like not smoking and exercising regularly and eating breakfast regularly, not eating between meals, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night, not being overweight. Well, you say, okay, you started, Dr. DeRose, by talking about how we didn't have to choose between being happy and healthy. And now you're telling about a study where people live longer by doing a bunch of stuff that doesn't sound all that good to me. I mean, I don't like to exercise, and I surely don't like to eat breakfast, and I love to eat between meals. I mean, this is sounding like you're just telling the same story that everybody's been telling me since I was a little boy, that I've got to do things that take away enjoyment from my life if I want to live a long time. This is where the next part of Breslow's research comes, because they kept following those people over time, 9 years and 10 years and 20 years and 30 years, and they found something fascinating. The same factors that help you live longer help you live better. If you don't want to have disability, you want to follow the same habits that help you live longer. If you want to have better immune systems, if you want to have less heart disease, less stroke, you want to follow the same lifestyle. And over the last 50 years and better, as lifestyle medicine has emerged, what we're finding is you don't have to struggle as to whether you should be on the program for arthritis prevention or diabetes prevention or high blood pressure prevention. It's basically generally the same lifestyle program. So here's what the challenge becomes. The challenge becomes this. Many of us have developed a liking for things that are not in harmony with the best lifestyle to live. And that brings us to our second part. The first part of our presentation, I was trying to help you see, both in my own experience and in the experience of most of my patients and audiences over the years, we have this false conflict in our mind. Am I going to be healthy or am I going to be happy? And I hope you've already caught the vision. You don't have to choose between the two. The healthiest program in the long term is the happiest program. Okay? So having said that, then what's the problem? Well, the problem is we're creatures of habit. And most of us have developed habits that, well, may not be in our best interests. Now, as Rob Putt introduced me tonight, or this afternoon, he said, I'll tell you a little bit more about my story. So I told you about my childhood. Let me tell you about my teenage years. In my teenage years, I was raised in the environs of Chicago, Illinois, and I noticed, long before people were worried about things like cell phones and people tracking us, okay? I knew that I was being watched. Yes, as a young man, I knew I was being watched. Because there was a restaurant that I frequented, and when I first started eating there, they had a sign on the restaurant. It said something like, hundreds served. And then as I kept going there, it would say thousands and tens of thousands and millions. And I don't know if you've seen the restaurant. It had these like golden, these humps. Are any of you familiar with, do they have them up here? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, McDonald's, you got it. And so as I was frequenting the fast food restaurants, they were tracking my consumption. I'm trying to make a point for you. I liked fast foods growing up, okay? But you say, well, that's not too bad. I still like fast foods. But it was worse than that. I had a terrible sweet tooth. So I could not go to sleep at night unless I had my ice cream or my chocolate cake or my candy bars. You're following along. So now some of you say, no, wait, this guy's here telling us about how to change bad habits for good. I don't know how much credibility he has. I'm just confessing to you. So I've dealt with these things too. I didn't grow up on some ideal lifestyle. I'm trying to say to you, most all of us have these backgrounds. Maybe they still are following us, where we like certain things that we know are really not helping us, and we know it today, not because we read some book, but maybe even the doctor told us. Said, Jane, you know, you weigh 500 pounds, and I'm looking at your diet inventory here, and, 3 pounds of chocolate and a gallon of ice cream every day. I think this is part of your problem. And you say, impossible, impossible. Those are the things that make me happy. Or maybe even say, well, it may be true, doctor. It may be true, but I'd rather be happy and die early than to be miserable and live a long time. But remember, that's a false dichotomy. So let's bring ourselves to my own story and to perhaps your story. So I'm not on the best of lifestyles. And here we're in a church, so I could tell you what happened to me. I was an agnostic as a young man. I didn't even know if there was a God. There came a time in my life where I came under the conviction that there was a God who was interested in me, and he was also interested in my health. And he didn't like some of the things I was doing because it was hurting me. I had actually, even as a young man, I had more health issues than I have now. I had terrible digestive problems. I'd miss school. I'd miss work. Now, some of you say, well, that's no surprise. You're eating all this terrible food. Well, I didn't connect the dots. And when I thought God wanted me to change my diet, I can't tell you I was all that happy about it. But by God's grace, I decided I was going to have to get away from all that sugar. That was one thing that I realized I had to do. So what do you think the Lord convicted me to do? What do you think he impressed me that I needed to do? What was it? Fasting? Yeah, actually, you're on the right track. He wanted me to go on a total fast from sugar. That's right. Yeah, a total fast from sugar. I can't tell you this sounded all that good to me, but I'm telling you about it right now because I didn't know it at the time. I was not a physician. I didn't have a master's in public health. But years later, as I went into the medical profession and later became board certified in preventive medicine, did a master's in public health degree, I actually learned that what God had convinced me of as a young man was cutting-edge medical science. And it's this. It's very difficult, in fact, for many people impossible, to cut down on habits that you have an addictive relationship with. Think about a smoker, right? And by the way, I've helped many people who had nicotine addiction over the years to get free of nicotine. And I've met some just incredible people. I mean, incredible. I mean, as far as their ability to deal with addiction. Because typically we tell people, if you're a smoker, what do we tell them? We tell them you've got to do what? You have to quit completely. You can't just cut back. If you want to break free of cigarettes, you've got to get rid of them. And I remember one fellow, he said, you know what? He said, I think I could pretty much leave off all the cigarettes except the first one in the morning. I just really need that one. And we said, this isn't really a good idea. He said, but I'm going to do it. He said, I can do it. And what I want to tell you is this guy was remarkable because most people can't do this. But he went from, a pack or two a day to just one cigarette a day. And he did that for a whole week. And for 2 weeks. And for 3 weeks. I mean, this is amazing. Most people, if they're smoking like that, they can't just go to one cigarette a day. But something happened that 4th week, and he went right back to his old habit. What do we tell someone who's an alcoholic? Do we say, well, just have 1 drink a week? Is that what we say? We say, make a clean break with it. What I want you to understand is what most ordinary folks who don't think that they have addictions have been told by many good dietitians over the years. They've been told it's okay to engage in your addictive behaviors just a little bit. And this makes absolutely no sense from neuroscience and behavioral science. Okay? If you have an addictive relationship with something, the power comes from making a clean break with it. So back to my story. I make a clean break with the sugar. I start reading labels. Now, some of you might think this was extreme, but I was reading a box of Cheerios. And back then, I think they had 1 gram of sugar. I don't know if that's still true today, but I read that, sugar in the Cheerios, no Cheerios even. It's very low sugar cereal, one of the lowest sugar cereals out there. But I wasn't going to eat anything that had sugar in it. And here's the amazing thing. From someone who couldn't go to sleep at night without eating his sugar, my taste started to change. I started to like sweet fruits more and other things. I could eat an apple and enjoy that. Fast forward a few years. I'm in medical school. And one of my hobbies in medical school was I joined a singing group. Now some of you said, what? I didn't know, Dr. DeRose, I didn't know you were a singer, a vocal artist. This place would have been packed if we knew you were going to be singing some of your famous songs. Well, let me just tell you about my recording history. I've never recorded an album, a singing album. And beyond that, I want to tell you the audiences that I was singing for as a medical student. Certain audiences are more discriminating than others. And we found that there was a group of people that seemed to really enjoy our music, and they would never leave. Back in that era, we called them shut-ins. Okay? These were people that were homebound. They were maybe living in a nursing home or an extended care facility. Maybe they were in a group home being cared for. And so we'd go and sing in these places, and the people were always happy for us to come. So no one ever paid anything to hear me. So now you're starting to feel better that I'm not singing, probably. But on one particular occasion, we were singing in a home for the first time. This was a home where a number of elderly individuals there, a family, had their kind of a business or ministry where they cared for older folks who needed help. They lived in this home, this large home, with this family. And as we were singing there, we did not realize what was going on behind the scenes. Some of the people, some of the caregivers were so touched by our music that they slipped out while we were singing. They made their way into the kitchen, and they pulled out a large silver platter. Onto that silver platter, they took out some festive party plates, and they put those party plates on the platter. And then onto each plate, they put some cookies and a nice scoop of ice cream. Okay? And then all of a sudden, as we're finishing up our program, out comes the silver platter. Ice cream and cookies, some of my favorite foods of a few years before. And as they hand me my plate, what am I going to do? Now, I have to tell you the truth. At this point in my career, I had never given a health lecture. So how many of you think, at that point, the Holy Spirit came upon me and said, Dr. DeRose, this is your opportunity to establish yourself as a health lecturer and tell these people that they should never serve this in their home. How many of you think that's what I did? That did not happen. Instead, I felt that God wanted me to accept their hospitality. Now some of you are saying, well, I've immediately undermined my credibility. But that's what my feeling was at that time. But I really didn't want to eat the stuff. So what do? Well, let me tell you. Next to me was not a medical student, but someone older and wiser than me. He was already a bona fide medical doctor. And I watched him from the side of my mouth. When he thought, side of my mouth, side of my face, I watched him, and I noticed that he did something very interesting with the cookies. Slipped them into his pocket. When I thought no one was looking, I followed suit. Cookies in pocket. How many of you have ever tried slipping ice cream into your pocket? Yeah, I knew that wasn't going to work. So what do you do with the ice cream, right? I mean, the cookies are gone. Well, I didn't really want to eat the ice cream, but my long experience with ice cream gave me a wonderful insight. I will just start eating the ice cream very slowly, and the ice cream will melt, and I won't eat all that much of it. The cookies are gone, and it will look like I was a gracious recipient of their hospitality. And so that's what I did. I began eating what used to be my favorite food. And as I was eating it, it was tasting so sweet and so rich. I tell you the truth, I was starting to get nauseated. And as we left that home that day, it was like a stroke of illumination had come upon my mind. And I realized that my habits had changed. My desires had changed. Years later, I would learn that the Creator has given us the ability to literally choose what we will enjoy. But the problem is If you cut back on something, it actually doesn't help you. In fact, it can make your desires worse. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say, I told you, we had this woman who weighed 500 pounds, eating all the chocolate and ice cream. And let's say the doctor said to her, we'll change your name just for the sake. Some of you might have thought I was talking about you, because I haven't met you. But I don't think anyone here is named Esmeralda, are they? Okay, so are you Esmeralda in back there? Okay. So Esmeralda, the doctor says, I want you to stop eating chocolate altogether. And she says, but doctor, you already looked at the inventory. I'm eating 3 pounds a day. Wouldn't it help my diabetes and help my weight if I just cut down to 1 Snickers bar a day? Now, would that help her? Well, it would, on a caloric basis and a fat intake basis. And in fact, if you see most dietitians today, what I've noticed over the years, and there's some excellent dietitians I've worked with, they're not all of this caliber, but many of them are just very good in math. And they'll tell you, you say, oh, I just love chocolate, but I'm eating the 3 pounds. They say, no problem. I did all the calculations, and you can have 1.5 chocolate kisses every day, and you can still lose weight and control your diabetes. Well, mathematically, this is very good. But behaviorally, if someone like Esmeralda has an addictive relationship with chocolate, then this is not a good strategy. So as she's bartering with the doctor and she finally come to an agreement. Okay, the doctor says you can just have the 1 Snickers bar a week. Now just kind of play this out. Now before, Esmeralda's just eating chocolate day in and day out, all the chocolate she wants, not really thinking about it. Whenever she wants chocolate, she just has it. Now she's cut back to just 1 Snickers bar a week, and what happens? Well, she eats that Snickers bar. And then she starts looking at her watch. Okay, 6 days, 23 hours, and 15 minutes, and then I can have my Snickers bar. Do you understand what can happen? Actually, your desire for the things that you're trying to avoid can actually increase. And instead of your life being a life of happiness, it becomes a life of deprival. Oh, poor me. I just wish I didn't have diabetes and weight problems and I could eat all that chocolate that I used to eat before. But oh my, what am I going to do? It's such a terrible life. I can't have chocolate but once a week. This is not a successful strategy for lifestyle change. And I'm telling you about this because I think of one woman years ago. She had come through a program that I was working with. It was a medical program. People were living in our facility. It was a live-in lifestyle change program. I've worked in a number of these centers over the years. And she was sitting in a lecture very much like this. And I was telling her this. And she just got so excited. And she came up to me after the lecture. And she said, this is transformative for me. Because I've always struggled. Her problem food was ice cream. And she said, I've always tried to cut back and do this. And she said, I'm going to make a clean break with the ice cream. And some months later, I heard from her. And she said, Dr. DeRose, I don't miss the ice cream. I've developed new enjoyments, and I'm not eating it. And she was so happy. She was free of that habit that she knew was undermining her health. Now, some of you are already getting very worried. Listen, if you have ice cream, once a month, and you have it at an occasional birthday party, and it's not a big deal for you, I'm not telling you got to get rid of the ice cream. My job is not here to tell you what you need to do differently. And in a church, I'll tell you, if you want to know what you need to change, I'll say, ask the Holy Spirit. Ask God. He's able to show you what you need to do differently in your life. It's not up to me. It's not up to your doctor. Your doctor could say, well, I think part of the reason for your diabetes is you're drinking those 2 cases of Pepsi every day. Okay? I think that's messing up your blood sugar. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your doctor thinks. Well, you say, come on, Dr. DeRose, you're a physician. It doesn't matter what my doctor thinks. Well, behaviorally it doesn't. Your doctor can tell you something's terrible, but if you're not convinced you've got to change it, then what difference does it make? Do you see my point? So let's just step back a minute. What I want to tell you, if you haven't been hearing me say it, because I haven't made it maybe as clear as it needs to be, because God has given you the ability to choose what you enjoy, you actually have a very interesting choice that you can make. You can actually say, well, what do I want to enjoy? Right? And this is what we know. The things that we habitually choose, we tend to develop an enjoyment for. Let me give you an example. I'm going to grab a book here. This happens to be a best-selling book, often in the top 10 bestsellers on Amazon. And I'm so grateful that I have a personal relationship with the authors. One of them is me. The other is Dr. Greg Steinke and nurse practitioner Trudy Lee. We wrote this book together a few years back, and it's called 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control. And I'm turning to our chapter on nutrition. And I am opening up to a classic study that we included in the book. It's figure 517 for those of you who had the good fortune to already download the book onto your Kindle reader on your cell phone, okay? I realize most of you didn't do that. But let me tell you, I'm looking at this graphic here. In this particular study, done many years ago, they had individuals cut their salt consumption in half. That is a dramatic decrease in salt, okay? And at first, how do you think their food tasted? That's right, it was terrible. And you could interview these people and you say, how is life going to be for the rest of your life now with this low salt? And they would say, I just chose health over happiness. But that's not the whole story. Remember, we can do what? That's right, we can choose. We can develop new enjoyments. So these folks stuck with it. And as you look at the graph here, it shows you, after a week, their salt preference had decreased about 10%. And it continued to drop for a period of time. How long did it take before they developed a liking for the new low-salt foods they were consuming? How long did it take before their tastes fully adjusted? Any guesses? Okay, I hear 10 days, I hear a month, 3 weeks. Any other figures? 21 days, okay. Anyone else want to weigh in? 1 week, okay. The correct answer? 3 months. 3 months. Now you say, well, why do we run shorter programs? Why have I heard that you can develop a new habit in a few weeks? Well, you can develop a new habit, but that doesn't mean your tastes have fully accommodated to the new habit, okay? Now, to make matters worse, you can sabotage this process to some extent. Let me tell you the biggest way that people sabotage things in my experience, and it has to do with a single word, and the word is reward. Okay? Now, I actually have nothing against rewards. And if I were the business manager of Compass Health, that's the company I run. I'm not the business manager. If I were the business manager, I'd probably give you all a reward here today. Instead, my wife is the business manager. And she didn't say it in so many words, but she wanted to give you discounts on all our resources, so that's what we've got for you instead of giving you a reward. But I have nothing against rewards, okay? In fact, don't tell her, even though I think she may be listening in the other room where they're playing this presentation, broadcasting it, but I'm going to give you some free resources before we finish, tell you how to get them, okay? So anyway, but still be nice to Sonia. Act like you're at least interested in some of the resources we have for sale, and she'll feel better. So if I were giving you a reward, there'd be nothing wrong with it. If I said I wanted to reward you for coming, reward you, give you maybe, we have these inexpensive little booklets here. They only list for $1. One is here dealing with stress, another fasting and praying. So if my wife was in a generous spirit, maybe you brought no money today, you could say, well, Dr. DeRose did talk about giving gifts and rewards, and I did come all the way, from the far reaches of the vast metropolis of Umatilla. Could you consider giving me one of these booklets? So, she's a very kind woman. She's a good business manager, though, so I don't know quite what she would do. But anyway, I could give these out as a gift to each one of you to say thank you for coming, and I want to give you a reward for taking an interest in your health. There'd be nothing wrong with that. The problem is with the type of rewards most of us give ourselves. And the problem is very interesting to me. Let's say you're trying to make a clean break with potato chips. And some of you are wondering, well, how do I know if I have an addictive relationship with something? I mean, you're talking about this, but how do I know? Well, one of the ways you know, let's talk about potato chips, for example. Let's say you say, well, do I really have an addictive relationship with potato chips? Well, if you're the type of person who says, I'm going to have a sandwich, I'm just going to have a small handful of potato chips, and you put that small handful in, and it's all you eat, the bag's sitting there, full bag, just a handful out of it, I would doubt you have an addictive relationship. But if you take a small handful of the potato chips, and then you say, well, I already had a small handful, Brian will have another handful, and what's the difference between 2 or 3? And before you know it, the whole bag is gone. This is not a good sign, okay? So if you have trouble controlling your consumption of something, you may have an addictive relationship with it. Now, if you're a mental health professional, you may say, oh, well, it's not a true addiction. I don't care what you call it. If you can't control your consumption of something, your best strategy is often making a clean break with it, okay? So let's go back to the rewards, and this is the crazy thing. So you're trying to make a clean break with the potato chips. And so what you say is no more potato chips. I went to Dr. DeRose's lecture at the Umatilla Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I decided right then and there, enough of this cutting back and all, and I am going to make a clean break with the potato chips. And that's what you do. You stop eating them. And 3 weeks down the road, you're at Costco. And they have Costco's around here? Okay. And Costco has this special, 24-pack box of potato chips. I don't know that they really do, but just for the sake of our discussion, and they have this, and it's on sale, super sale. You say, how could they be selling it so cheaply? You say, I don't eat potato chips anymore, but I know how many of my guests enjoy them, so I'm going to buy one of these big 24, packs of potato chips. And so you load it into your cart or whatever device you have to navigate the aisles at Costco. And you buy it, you bring it home, and you're laying in bed and sleeping fine. But about a week later, one of those nights where you're laying in bed, you wake up with a cold sweat. No, it couldn't be. Maybe it was a nightmare, but what would happen? Maybe it's true. You just dreamed that all that 24-pack of potato chips, they were all stale. Yeah. Could you imagine serving stale potato chips to your guests at a meal? How embarrassing would that be, right? And so it's 1 in the morning, and what do when you can't sleep? And your mind is just saying, stale potato chips, stale. You just got to get up, right? And you might as well check, right? Because you can't sleep anyway. You know how bad that is for your health. We've all been hearing how much sleep we need. And so a few potato chips couldn't be as bad as a whole night without sleep. So you get up, and you open one of the bags, and you try the potato chips. They're not stale. And your tastes haven't changed. They still taste good. And so you say, well, I've already eaten in the middle of the night, and I've had potato chips, and I've already fallen off the wagon. I might as well eat a few more. And, well, why leave the bag open? You end up polishing off the whole bag. And then you look at that box, and this was like different flavors of potato chips. And you say, well, I've already, messed up, and I wonder if these others are any good. Well, you could see where it's going, right? Now, here's the problem. If you had any question about whether that was a problem food, you just illustrated it again. But you still got all those, maybe still 6 bags out of the 24, after that night. I don't know how many are still left. And you decide, you know what you're going to do. DeRose said make the clean break, but this is just a little bit too strict. What you're going to do is you're going to reward yourself. If you do really good for a month, you get to have a potato chip feast. Okay? Do you see what the problem is? It's the same thing as the cutting back. Why do we reward ourselves with the very things that are destroying us? In working in these intensive lifestyle change programs, we once had a government leader who came to the program, bad diabetes. He also had a real liking for fried fish. And while he was in our lifestyle program, we didn't serve any of that stuff. And he did great. Blood sugars came down. I think he got off his insulin, doing wonderful. On his way home, after that strict 3-week program, what do you think he did? He decided to reward himself. And what do you think he rewarded himself with? He didn't get himself a nice little Dr. DeRose book, fasting and praying or dealing with stress. What did he do? He went out and got fried fish. So what do you think that did to his program? That's right. It's like the guy who came to one of our 1-week intensive residential stop smoking programs. What do you think he stopped and got on his way home? A pack of cigarettes. You say, how crazy is that? Now, maybe I shouldn't tell you this story because 2020 was a tough year. And as the year was closing, one of the feel-good stories of the year was published. Went rampant, viral over the web. It was a story of a father who some 5 or 6 years ago had died, tragically. He was dying of cancer. He had a young son, 15, 16 years of age, and he had a daughter who was a bit older. And he grabbed his daughter one day as he was dying, and he gave her some money with a special charge. Some 5 or 6 years later, she was to do something very loving and very special for her brother, this dying man's son. And so it was. When his 21st birthday came, his sister walked over to him and said, Father, when he was dying, some 5, 6 years ago, he gave me this $10 bill so that you could buy your first drink. First alcoholic beverage. And the son was just so touched. And as they interviewed him in the media, he said how significant it was, how his father cared for him and left this gift for him. And as he was drinking that first beer, he was just thinking of his father. It was like they were drinking that beer together. Well, of course, being one of the feel-good stories of 2020, none other than Budweiser heard about it. And Budweiser, in the kindness of their hearts, they sent this young man cases of Budweiser beer. Yes, that's right. You can look up the story. Now, why I am telling you the story is because the tragedy of the whole story is this boy's father died of esophageal cancer. This is a cancer that is linked to alcohol. It's like a father dying of lung cancer, leaving money so his son could get his first pack of cigarettes. And I'm reading the story as a physician, and I'm saying, what? I mean, the media is telling this as a feel-good story at the end of the year? I mean, what's the matter with us? How come we think we're rewarding ourselves or rewarding or blessing the ones we love by giving them the very things that are going to destroy them? Amazing. But we do it to ourselves. So, we're in a church, so I can tell it to you very plainly. I've learned over the years that there's really a God who does care about us. He loves you, and if you ask Him about your lifestyle, He's willing to show you what needs to be different. And here's the amazing thing. Unlike any doctor, unlike even myself, if the Holy Spirit convicts you about something you need to change, He will give you the power to change that. God won't convict you to change something just so to drag you through the mud and make you feel how bad you are. He won't convict you to change something unless He wants to give you the power to quit or the power to do it if it's something you should be doing that you're not. Maybe like physical activity. So you say, okay, well enough and good. I understand it. I don't have to choose between being happy and healthy. It's the same program if I understand it rightly. The best lifestyle is going to help me be happy as well as healthy over the course of my life. And God has given me this ability to choose what I'll enjoy. So why don't I just choose the very best lifestyle? Why don't I ask God to show me what needs to be different in my life and go in that direction? Well, you say, there's just one problem. Even when I pray, I still don't know what the best lifestyle is because I listen to doctors, and one doctor says this, and another doctor says that. Well, that's another reason why I like to travel around. Now you can say, well, who am I opposed to any other doctor? Just one voice in many. But I will tell you that we've put together a variety of resources, some of which I want to give you free, and I'm going to tell you about them right now. Others we do have for sale here today. And they're designed to give you both information that can help you know how to do things better and also give you sometimes direct strategies and plans for how you can embark on a healthier lifestyle. So I want to tell you about some of those things for you. First, I'm going to tell you about some of the free things. So tomorrow, I believe it is, I could check, but talk with Rob after the meeting. He's our local organizer. He has my whole schedule for the area. I think I'm in Mount Dora tomorrow evening speaking on the immune system. But I'm going to speak there, give some of the high points of a free handout that you can get right now. We're not going to be passing this out. It's online, and I'm going to tell you how to get it. In order to do it, we're going to have to give you a memory exercise. How many of you have poor memories? Okay. So we're going to help even those of you with poor memories. One of the secrets of memory is to visualize things. I want you all to visualize a compass. Okay, think of a compass giving you direction. Okay, so can you see in your mind's eye a compass? Now, if you came to this meeting, I think one of the things you're probably interested in is health. Is that fair to say? So when you think of health, what do you think of? I mean, I know one of the kind of metaphors they use is like an apple or something. Think of something that you associate with health. What do you associate with health? What? Exercise, okay. So I want you to think in your mind of a compass pointing you to health, pointing you to the exercise, to the apples. How many of you can envision compass and health? Can you remember compass and health? Can you remember those two words? So if you can remember compass, health, that's my website. You say, oh, wait a minute. There's no website that doesn't have some dot something after it, right? It's compass, got to be compass health dot what? So it's going to be compass health dot what? Anyone want to guess? .com, good guess, but incorrect. Anyone else want to guess? .org, excellent guess, but also incorrect. Let me give you a clue. We're in a church. Jesus, when he spoke to his disciples, he said he was going to make them fishers of men. How many of you have ever seen anyone fish with a com or an org? Yes, you fish with a net. So our website is compasshealth.net. And if you go to compasshealth.net, you'll find all kinds of free resources. I'm going to tell you about a number of them. But I have some special free resources that are not available to the general public. They're kind of in secret places on my website that you have to know a special way to get there. So I'm going to tell you about it. Have you all memorized my website? What is it? Compasshealth.net. You got it. Compasshealth.net. Okay? So you can get all kinds of resources there. But I'm going to tell you about two special resources that you can't get just by remembering compasshealth.net. One of them, well, you can get this, but you can't get it free. I'm going to tell you how to get it free. So if you go to compasshealth.net, you can go to our bookstore, and you can buy this book. It's called Evading Ebola. Now you say, why would anyone want a book, Evading Ebola? We're not concerned about Ebola. But back in, when did we publish this? Back in 2014, when Ebola was a big concern in the world, we wrote this book. And I was fascinated by what I learned about Ebola. What I learned about Ebola, I never heard the secular media talking about it. What I learned about Ebola is what you've been hearing about COVID-19. And that is there were literally, the evidence suggested literally thousands of people in Africa who'd been exposed to Ebola but never got sick. They had asymptomatic illness, just like you're hearing about COVID-19. And so I said, well, what kind of things can improve the immune system? So although this book has some interesting history about Ebola, the last part of the book goes through things that you can do to improve your immune system. So you can go on my website and you can buy it for $10. We have it here tonight. The actual physical copies this afternoon for half price, $5. But if you want it free, you can get the ebook by going to my website. What is it? Compasshealth.net, but then you got to put a slash. And then you have to put one keyword, slash. What word do you think would allow you to get the Ebola book for free? Ebola, yes. Compasshealth.net/Ebola, and you get this book free, ebook. Okay. If you want a physical copy, we have them here. If you don't want us to save money, you can pay full price and go on the website and get it. Now, let me tell you about the other free resource. So this book gives some of the things I'll be talking about in Mount Dora. about things that you can do to improve your immune system. But we have even more in a free handout called Immune Enhancement, based on an interesting model called the Sanctuary. Now, some of you might say, well, this sounds pretty interesting. Now, you've heard of sanctuary cities. Maybe you don't like sanctuary cities. Maybe you do. You've heard of sanctuaries for birds, right? A bird sanctuary, wildlife sanctuaries. Sanctuary is a very interesting concept. We talk a little bit about the concept in this paper, but it's full of strategies that improve your immune system. And you'll see, if you come to Mount Dora, you'll see why I use that sanctuary motif. And sanctuary actually is a mnemonic for 9 things you can do to strengthen your immune system, like stress management and activity and nutrition. We go through a whole list. You can get that all free by going to my website. Again, you have to use a special keyword because we don't just give this out to anyone who visits. We do have a free materials section, but it's not in there yet. Okay, so if you want the free handout, you go to compasshealth.net/, what do you think? Sanctuary, that's right. So compasshealth.net/sanctuary. And if you go to that website, if everything's working right, if you go to one of those places, before too long, maybe even during the meeting, if it starts getting boring for you, you give us your email, you'll be on our email list, and we're planning to release a new video anytime. It just has to be reviewed. It's a fully produced video. It's called Beyond Immune Enhancement, absolutely free. It'll go out on YouTube. But if you sign up for one of our free resources, it'll put you on our mailing list, and we'll let you know when we have new resources coming out. So you'll get a link where you can watch that. Okay, so those are the free resources. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the other things we have. Then I'm going to take your questions, and let me let you know the other things we've got here to help you if they would be of help to you. The next thing I want to tell you about is a little bit more about our best-selling book, 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control. If I didn't mention it, I didn't look today, but this is usually in the top 10 best-selling books on blood pressure on Amazon. So Amazon often has it on special. We have it on special today. It lists for about $20, $19.95. We have them here today for $15. You can check. I don't know what Amazon has it for today. Sometimes they have it for more, other times for less. But you can pick up a physical copy or an ebook on Amazon. This is a program, 30-day program, for high blood pressure. It goes through 10 different areas that you can do that can help lower your blood pressure naturally. A whole chapter on natural supplements for blood pressure. So very comprehensive. Now, after we wrote this book, some people told us, well, you know, it's a great program. Many people getting great results with it. You can read the reviews on Amazon, hundreds of reviews. Very good in general. But some people said, you know, we want something that tells us every single day a specific thing to do. So this is a 30-day program, but we were letting people choose their own behaviors and make their own decisions, even though we were giving them guidelines. They said, we want to know specifics. So the next book I wrote is called The Methuselah Factor. And the Methuselah Factor is based on the science of blood fluidity. The science of blood fluidity. And folks tell me, well, what does that mean? We've learned in the medical research community that if you can improve your blood fluidity, you can improve a host of things. The first 13 chapters of this book tell you the kind of things that happen when you improve your circulatory health. Sure, you lower your risk of a stroke. You lower your risk of a heart attack. It also decreases your risk of vision problems, people with glaucoma and macular degeneration. The research shows improving your blood fluidity actually helps with eye conditions. It lowers your risk of certain cancers. It actually helps your mental clarity. There's evidence that it can decrease your risk of dementia. It can help you lower your blood pressure, decrease your risk of diabetic complications, can help you lose weight if you're overweight, improve your bone and joint health, delay aging, and even improve physical performance. Now, some of you say that sounds too good to be true. That's why in each of those chapters, you don't have to read all of them. If you say, I'm really interested in weight loss, read that weight loss chapter. So the first 13 chapters tell you why blood fluidity is important. You say, well, why did you call it the Methuselah Factor? How many of you know who Methuselah was? Yeah, according to the Bible, he was the man who lived the longest on this planet. So how many of you have ever seen blood work from Methuselah? Have any of you seen that? No evidence that he ever had any blood work done. But I can guarantee you that Methuselah had very good blood fluidity. So we call it the Methuselah Factor. It's Learn how to live sharper, leaner, longer, and better in 30 days or less. So first 13 chapters, we go through why this is important. Then the last 30 chapters, it's a day-by-day program as to how to improve your blood fluidity. Give me a day between 1 and 30, and we'll read what that day is focused on. 14. Okay, that was the first one I heard. So day 14, this is an interesting one you picked, because day 14 is a multiple of 7. Did you know that? Yeah. And what we found something interesting in looking at the literature. We have not only circadian rhythms, daily rhythms, but we have circaseptan rhythms, 7-day rhythms. So since we're giving a 30-day program, we came up with this amazing idea. You've probably never heard anything like it before. But we came up with this idea. Well, maybe I shouldn't say we came up with it. Some of you might think someone else came up with it before us. But we had this idea that it would help people's health if they took a day of rest every 7th day. How many of you are starting to think this sounds like a revolutionary idea? Okay, we decided a day of rest every 7th day. And so every 7th day in this program, there's something that's more focused on rest and spiritual health. And day 14 is one of them. It says, seek spirituality. So today's challenge, on your weekly day of rest, seek to connect with spiritual principles or values. Okay? And then we give some suggestions, things that you could do, and we talk about some of the connections between, I'll read this list. This is from the medical literature. When you prioritize spirituality or become more religiously involved, this has been shown in the research, you improve your quality of life. You're more likely to stick with healthy lifestyle behaviors. Your physical and mental functioning improve. Your blood pressure tends to be lower. You have less cardiovascular disease. You have fewer hospitalizations. If you grieve, you go through it quicker, and you have a longer lifespan. That's it. We have the scientific reference for it, okay? So my point is, each day walks you through something like that. I heard someone else give me a different day number. What else did I hear out there? 20. Okay, so day 20. Let's see what that is. I don't have all these memorized, even though I wrote the book. Okay, what is day 20? Oh, depend on your dentist. Maximize magnesium. You say, what's that about? So we have a challenge at the beginning of the day. Today's challenge, make dental health a priority by getting regular dental exams and engaging in daily oral hygiene. Also, increase your intake of magnesium, provided you neither have kidney problems nor use magnesium-raising medications. And then the chapter explains why. So magnesium has natural blood pressure-lowering properties. If you consume more magnesium, it will lower your risk of developing diabetes. If you have more magnesium, by the way, many people on blood pressure medicines are taking medicines that are lowering their magnesium, and no one's monitoring it. So number of things there, and of course dental health important for optimal circulation. So it's a 30-day program. And it's all mapped out in this book. Now, I've been talking with you about books, and I've had people over the years say, Dr. DeRose, I don't like to read. I'm not a reader. I'm not a good reader. So we got stuff to help you, too. So here tonight, I keep saying tonight because I'm giving a lot of lectures in the evenings, but it is really the afternoon for those of you that are actually aware of what time it is, better than the speaker. We have the full audio book for 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control. This is me reading that entire book. Over 12 hours of audio on like 10 CDs. So we have that if you like an audio book as you're driving to learn things that will be blood pressure lowering. By the way, there are really only about 2 groups here tonight. There I go again, tonight, huh? This afternoon. There's only 2 groups here. At least we said there were only 2 groups before our book came out. And that was, one group was people who had high blood pressure, and who was the other group? No, those who are going to get it. No, because here, no, really, this seriously, the research shows that even if you're, let's say in your 50s, mid-50s to mid-60s, if you do not have high blood pressure right now, if you live a normal lifespan, what are the odds that you'll have high blood pressure at some point before you die? It's actually 90%. That's the figure. So 90%. So the vast majority of us in this room, so really, yeah, I'm exaggerating a little bit, 2 groups, but really, if you don't have problems with your blood pressure today, it's likely going to come knocking on your door unless you do something about it. So after our book came out, I said, well, in fairness, I have to say there's 3 groups. There's the group of people who have high blood pressure today. There's the group of people who are going to have high blood pressure, but now what is the third group? No, that's the group that read our book, okay? Okay, and they avoided ever having high blood pressure. Okay, so we have some other resources for you too. If you don't like audiobooks and books on blood pressure, but you say, I really have high blood pressure, I got to do something, we have a 3-hour video series that I presented on reversing high blood pressure naturally. So those are our blood pressure resources. And then we have, to go along with the Methuselah Factor, whether you purchase the book or not, we came out with 30 5 to 10 minute videos where if you just want a DVD program, a healthy program, you say, I want to get on a healthy lifestyle this year, I don't want to spend thousands of dollars to go to a lifestyle program. I'm not saying this is a substitute for that, but I always recommend doing something at home before you spend a bunch of money and go to some far-flung place. So you can purchase this, the Methuselah Factor DVD set. We have 10 lectures that go along with the first 13 chapters of the book. We have 30 lectures, short lectures, so you can watch them one a day. It gives you those same challenges you have in the book. So you can use it alongside the book, or you can use it in place of the book. And then we have a whole host of other resources for you. They're all on special here. We have one on infectious diseases if you're concerned about natural strategies to improve your immune system and you don't want to read any of my free handouts or free books. This is a video that I presented on it, 2 1-hour presentations. If you're interested in brain health, you could drive down to, I think I'm giving this lecture down in Longwood or somewhere down that way. On Wednesday night, the Brain Health Revolution. This will be more comprehensive than that lecture because it's 2 1-hour presentations telling you simple things you can do to improve your brain health. Longevity Plus. That is kind of a summary, kind of an overview of the Methuselah Factor book. So this is 2 1-hour presentations. If you don't want the full Methuselah Factor book and you just want kind of an overview and some pointers rather than a specific 30-day program, this can complement that nicely, but you could also just get that. Some of you said, wow, what all do you cover in the 30-day blood pressure book? Well, we cover everything from nutrition to stress management to how you can improve your environment. Did you know that? You can change your environment to lower your blood pressure. Did you aware of that? Even how much noise is in your room will affect your blood pressure. If you live by a busy street, we have some strategies that will actually help you lower your blood pressure. So all kinds of things that you can read about in there. The 14th chapter is about spiritual health and how that can help you lower your blood pressure. And one of my co-authors, Dr. Greg Steinke, and I basically put that 14th chapter into a video. This video is called Spirituality and Health, Neglected Dimensions. We also included an overview video, a 30-minute video on lower high blood pressure naturally. It's kind of a summary of what we had in those the 3 1-hour presentations. A couple other resources, several other we have for you. We have a full diabetes program, 4 1-hour presentations on diabetes called Reversing Diabetes Naturally. We have something called Ancient Secrets, Modern Health. If you love pets and companion animals, we have a section on the health-giving benefits of companion animals here. We have an amazing presentation on the world's first controlled medical study. Do any of you know what it was? First controlled trial. 2 groups given different interventions. Do any of you know what it was? According to the New England Journal of Medicine, this was the very first evidence ever of a controlled study. It was in the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 1, where Daniel asked to be placed on a special diet, he and his friends, and you can read about the results in Daniel 1. That's the focus of another presentation on that video series. Some of you know me from the radio. Do any of you listen to American Indian Living on radio? It's here in your community. It's a show that I've hosted for nearly 2 decades, and I work a lot with Native Americans. I've learned in working with First Nation peoples that they have some amazing insights into health. That's the subject of listening to the buffalo. And you can read on the back here, from the example of Native Americans, gain insights and motivation to help you lose weight, prevent or better control diabetes, lower your cholesterol, boost your energy level, reduce your blood pressure, and more. And there you have a vintage picture of Dr. David DeRose taken circa 2003. If you're wondering if I had more hair, you might be disappointed. And last resource that we brought along, a lot of church groups really like this. People have used it in home Bible study groups. They've used it in church groups. This is called Healing Insights from the Gospel of Mark. These are 8 presentations, 30-minute presentations, where I go through the Gospel of Mark looking at health principles in the story of Jesus. A lot of people are very surprised, but there's all kinds of powerful health insights in the Gospel story. And if you're interested in a nice study series that you could use over 8 weeks in a home Bible study, a church group, a family Bible study, great resource. And online, if you go to my website, who remembers what it is? CompassHealth.net. Go to CompassHealth.net, go to the free resources, and you'll see a section for Healing Insights from the Gospel of Mark. We don't have the videos free there, but we have free study materials, over 100 pages, where if you're doing this as a study group, you can download those and study them and lead a discussion, or you could, as a group, read from those materials that go along with the videos. So all those are things that we brought along for you. You're welcome to take advantage of them. And I brought one other thing from my friend, Steve Wohlberg. Some of you know Steve. This is his personal story, his family's health journey called End Times Health War. We got a few of these books back there, and you're welcome to pick up one of these. So I wanted to let you know the things we brought along for you, as well as the free resources. Let's refresh our memories, because some didn't bring a smart phone or pen or paper. We want to make sure that everyone knows the website. What is it? CompassHealth.net. And to get the free electronic copy of Evading Ebola, how would you get it? Yeah, so CompassHealth.net/Ebola. And if you want the free handout, 15-page handout on improving your immunity based on the sanctuary system, how would you get that? That's right, CompassHealth.net/sanctuary. So those are all gifts to you from Compass Health. That's my company. And we're glad that you came out this afternoon. So we're going to take the last 10, 15 minutes to answer your questions. So if you have questions, I don't know if you want to use a roving mic, if you want me to repeat the question, what's going to work best? Okay, so there is a microphone up here. And do we have someone who's just so inspired by the talk that they want to get more physical activity? And here's your chance. We've got a lady already walking up. First come, first serve. Thank you for sharing your talents with us, okay? So, any questions? All you got to do is get her attention. Go for it.
What I can do to do better, I have thyroid problem, low blood count, osteoporosis.
Just one sec. It's not turned on.
Okay. They're going to get this turned on. And, hey, Rob, would you be so kind as to get me some water? Sonia has some if you don't have any handy.
I hope I'm on now. I have low blood counting, osteoporosis, thyroid problem, and I have a bad fall in '88, and it's a miracle I am here at this time.
We thank the Lord that you are here. So let's talk about these issues. So low blood counts, thyroid problems, osteoporosis. I'm going to tell you something interesting about blood counts. And if you get our book, The Methuselah Factor, you'll learn some surprising things. One of the things is what we consider a low blood count is not necessarily correct. Thank you so much. Let me just get a quick drink here, and then I'll proceed. Okay, so many people are surprised to learn this, and I'll tell you, this is very interesting. So remember, this book, The Methuselah Factor, is based on how to improve your circulatory health. We've got a weird outlook in our society. I noticed something as a young doctor. Now, some of you looking at me realize it's been a while since I was really a young doctor. But I noticed that our labs would report normal values based on what was average in the community. with a lot of things we've learned what was average was not very good. We learned that about cholesterol in the 80s. But what we still haven't realized is what we call normal when it comes to blood counts is not necessarily good. Let me give you one example, and I'm not sure where your blood counts are low, but let me tell you this, because a lot of people have this problem. And I'll tell it to you by the way of a story. Some years ago, a fellow that I had met many miles away got a hold of my phone number and called me up, and he said, Dr. DeRose, I just got terrible news. My doctor told me I have a low white blood cell count and that I need to start eating meat. He was a vegetarian. And as I listened to his story, I told him, you don't need to eat meat. I know a better way to raise your white blood count. And he said, well, what is it? I said, start smoking cigarettes. And he realized that I must not be serious. I explained to him that the white blood cells in our bodies are like the police cars in your community. How many of you walked here to the meeting? None of you walked? Did all of you drive here? Okay. So let's say you're driving back home after the meeting. And as you're driving home, you start seeing more and more police cars. How many of you will be thinking, I am so glad that they're ramping up the police protection in my community? How many of you are thinking that? What are you thinking as you see more and more police cars? And as you drive up to your block, you see, well, let's say you drive up to your house and there's 5 squad cars in front of your house. How many of you think, this is great, I'm glad they're protecting my home? What are you thinking? You're thinking something's wrong, right? So when it comes to white blood count, you have a high white blood count when you're assaulting your body. Your body ramps up the defenders, it ramps up the white count. So a high white count is not a good sign. In fact, what we learned when we were doing our research on the Methuselah Factor is the higher your white count, the worse your blood fluidity. It actually increases your risk of diabetes. It's a marker of inflammation in your body. So what I was trying to explain to this fellow that called me is we find that people who are the healthiest sometimes have lower white blood counts than normal. So if a doctor says you have a low blood count and it's a low white count, that may be normal and healthy for you. Now, having said that, if your hemoglobin is 8, hemoglobin is the oxygen-carrying component in your blood, this is not good. You'll need that hemoglobin to carry oxygen to your brain. By the way, though, too much hemoglobin is not good either. So I tell people, and if you read the Methuselah Factor book, you'll learn this, you shouldn't be taking an iron supplement or a multivitamin with iron unless you are iron deficient, because excess iron is actually harmful. So the first part of my answer to your question is low blood counts may be a problem. You could have a marrow problem, you could have blood loss, or it could just be normal and you're on a healthy lifestyle. So it depends on the specifics. And after the lecture, I'm happy to talk with you or others who have individual questions. But let's move on and talk about the few other things. Thyroid. Thyroid is very interesting. I just was talking with a woman also from out of state. Had I think come to one of my lectures. And by the way, you can contact me through compasshealth.net. Just be persistent, because sometimes I'm traveling or doing other things, hard to get my attention. But if you go to compasshealth.net, there's a contact us. You could send me a query. This woman reached out to me, and she had thyroid problems and osteoporosis. And I was talking with her. I said, tell me about your thyroid problems. Now, the most common thyroid problem that we see in America is hypothyroidism. Okay? And the most common form of hypo or low thyroid condition is caused by something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's an autoimmune condition destroying the thyroid. Now, there's some suggestion that there might be some things we can do to decrease autoimmunity in the body. And I actually have a free handout. I'm pretty sure it's on our website. So if you go to compasshealth.net, go on to the free materials, you'll see something on thyroid, and you'll see some of the strategies we recommend there for thyroid. But this woman was on thyroid replacement. She was on Synthroid. And as I was talking with her, I said, that sounds like an awful lot of thyroid they're giving you. And she ended up getting her records, and I said, some of those numbers that you're getting, to me, suggest you're getting too much thyroid. So if they give you thyroid replacement, excessive amounts of thyroid replacement can actually thin your bones and make you more prone to heart rhythm problems. So it's very important that you're working with someone who's keeping all these things in mind. You're not seeing one doctor for your bones and one for your thyroid and one for your blood counts, and no one really paying attention to what else is going on. So find a good primary care doctor. We've been working with one while we've been out here, Dr. George Guthrie. He and others with, I guess they call it now Advent Health Orlando, and Dr. Guthrie and others like him can give you some good individual advice. So those are some overviews. We have a free handout on osteoporosis. Any of these things that we have free handouts on, if they're not on the website, just send me something through Contact Us and we can send you that as well, okay? What about other questions? All you got to do is raise your hand. Okay, we've got one in the back.
What is a holistic way to deal with a UTI? That's chronic.
Okay. So we're talking about urinary tract infections. You know, how can we deal with those naturally?
I cannot take cranberry juice. I'm heavy. I can take about an ounce of cranberry juice with 30 ounces of water. But I can't drink pure cranberry.
And what happens when you drink it?
I get diarrhea.
Okay. Okay, so it is true that there are compounds in cranberries that have urinary protective effects, and sometimes what we'll do is we'll have people use the cranberry extract. Some people can tolerate that when they can't tolerate the juice. And for anyone who has diabetes or other things, we don't recommend they use the juice anyway. So cranberry extract can be helpful if you tolerate it. Drinking plenty of water, of course, is very important. A lot of people say, what's plenty of water? We generally recommend, we're encouraging people to really drink lots of fluids. We recommend in the range of a gallon a day. So that'd be 4 quarts. Now if you're on diuretic medications or other things, you may need to be careful. If you have congestive heart failure or kidney problems, yes, by all means check with your doctor first. You say, but what else can I do? There's a natural herb called uva ursi, also known as bearberry. Are you familiar with uva ursi?
Yeah.
Have you tried uva ursi?
I haven't been able to get a hold of it.
Okay. Uva
But
ursi,
I have heard of it.
Yeah.
I also used corn silk.
Okay. So corn silk and watermelon seed, as well as dandelion, all have diuretic properties. They may be helpful, but in my experience, uva ursi is one of the more helpful herbs for urinary infection. We don't recommend a person just take it continuously, but take it for a week. And see, here's the other thing. When people have chronic urinary issues, sometimes they can have what we call asymptomatic bacteriuria. So even after you do some natural things, maybe you take the cranberry extract, the uva ursi, drink a lot of water, if your symptoms go away, then we don't typically get worried about the urinary specimen showing some bacteria, because some people just chronically will have the bacteria. But do a natural regimen, consider the uva ursi, the cranberry extract, and the copious amounts of fluid, just for a week. So consider that. You know, check with your doctor. I mean, I can't individually tell you that that's what you should do, but that would be something that we'd often consider. Okay? We have any other questions this afternoon? Right here, right in the middle here. So let her bring the mic over to you, okay? And we have time for just maybe one more after this, and then I'll be out in the fellowship hall if you have questions. Okay, go ahead.
Do you see any correlation between poor health and intestinal fungal issues?
Okay. So the question has with poor health and intestinal fungal issues. It's a very interesting question. So there's a lot of attention over the last decade especially has gone into what we now call the microbiome. So it's really looking at bacteria that live in your body, and a large share of those bacteria live in your intestinal tract, in your gut. It's very interesting. There are some bacteria that are actually healthy for you. And there's ways to favor healthy bacterial growth, and there's ways to frustrate the growth of healthy bacteria. One of the ways that it's frustrated is by the use of antibiotics, which is kind of, a two-edged sword. If you need antibiotics, I'm not saying don't get them, but don't ever demand of a doctor that you need antibiotics, okay? Make sure the doctor really feels you need them, because using antibiotics less is generally the better strategy. One of the things it does is upsets your normal flora. You have normal yeast as well as bacteria in the gut. When things overgrow, you can have problems. And clearly, whether it's just the yeast components, whether it's the bacterial components, clearly, if you adversely impact your flora, it can affect your entire health. It can affect your sensitivity to compounds. It can affect a host of diseases. It's amazing the number of things that they're finding linked to gut health. So definitely, we recommend, if you have any questions about restoring your gut health, you can consider the use of probiotics. These are actually ingesting the healthy bacteria, but there are also prebiotics. Prebiotics, one of the best sources is garlic. This favors the growth of natural healthy bacteria. So we're going to wind up at this point. I think Rob Putt is going to come and make some final remarks, but I'll let you know we do have a full resource table, not right in the foyer, but in the room beyond the foyer. There's a fellowship hall. Those doors should be open when you go out there. They're going to be keeping plenty of ventilation through the area, I'm told, if you're concerned about exposure. And if you have individual questions, I will be happy to take those questions from you. So what we'll do first is, if you have questions that you're okay with others hearing, I'll take those first. And if some of you say, my question is very personal, I want to talk with you in private somewhere, we'll step away after maybe half an hour or so when others have had a chance to ask questions. I know sometimes people, when they get our books, they like me to sign them either for yourself or for others. I'm happy to do that. So I'll be sitting over by the resource section and signing materials, answering questions. I'm just very thankful. You folks were such a gracious group. You not only invited us here, you laughed at my jokes, you smiled appropriately behind those masks I could see, and just thank you for coming out and taking an interest in your health. Rob?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. DeRose. Let's give Dr. DeRose a warm hand. Thank you so much. I have just a couple of things to announce here. First of all, if you want to get more information, you go to what website? That's the easy one, isn't it? compasshealth.net. Excellent. And we can get our free Ebola book, which has information about how to build your immune system up to prevent COVID-19 as well. And that one you put / and what would you put? Ebola. And if you want to learn about the sanctuary, which is general health principles, right? You go / sanctuary. Excellent. Okay, now did everyone get a registration form when you came in? Did you get one of these? Okay, if you didn't get one of these, Jerry, there's a couple of folks, Becky and Mike didn't get a registration form. We'd like you to fill that out, and that way you can, that way we'll contact you the next time we do a health program like this. We will contact you. And if you're interested in like the natural food cooking, just check that off. We are going to be doing a cooking school soon as we possibly can, as soon as we feel it's safe to do that. We were doing a class right here, Mike and Becky. We were doing a class, and then in March we had to cancel it. And people have been anxious to get back at it, so we're going to see if we can figure a good strategy out to do one again. We had around 70 people attending that. Okay, so registration forms. Other locations. Now, Dr. DeRose did mention the Mount Dora Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is on Highway 41, right across from the dealership, the Chrysler dealership, on Highway 41, not too far from Crooked Road, I forget what that's called. Crooked Lake Road, thank you. So the next program, this is Sunday, afternoon. Sunday evening, there's the same lectures in Apopka. And then Monday evening, let's see, what time is that one? Monday at 2 to 3:30 is a program called Jumpstart Your New Year, a 30-day Methuselah Factor lifestyle program. So if you're interested in any of these, you can go online and watch it as well. And then on Monday evening, as he mentioned, at the Mount Dora Church, that's the boosting of your immune system. That's Monday evening at 7 to 8:30. And then Tuesday in Leesburg in the afternoon at 3:30 to 5. And that's the missing link to weight loss and more, the Methuselah Factor. And that deals with the weight loss issue. On Tuesday evening at 7 p.m., at the North Lake Seventh-day Adventist Church, there is reversing high blood pressure naturally. So that's the focus on the book that he was mentioning, and that's at the North Lake Church, 7 to 8:30. Then Wednesday, there is the brain, that's at 7:30 in the evening, and that's at the Brain Health Revolution, Optimum Mental Performance for Life, and that's at the Forest Lake Seventh-day Adventist Church. And all of these you can watch online. So if you want to know how you're interested in any of these topics, just ask me. I can send you the link. If you did get an email from us, then I'll send all the links to everybody. And okay, so that's that. Other locations, how to exit. We're going to ask you to stay seated. We're going to have a short prayer. Stay seated, and we're going to exit you from the front back. We're trying to keep our social distancing going, and go straight out. That way you can go by the book table and then just exit out the side door. If for any reason you have to exit the front door, you can. But otherwise, just go out the back, and there's lots of room to have plenty of space. Also, when you go out the door, you're going to get a magazine, a free magazine, and Amazing Health magazine is very, very good. Remember the principles he was talking about to extend your health? Those are featured in that magazine, so you'll find that very interesting. And also on your way out, there's a gift box. If anyone feels like they'd like to give a donation in the gift box, certainly you're all welcome to do so. Just drop it in the box, and it goes towards expenses for the program. And so I believe that is it. Is anyone have a question, any comments? Have you found it helpful? Great, excellent, good. Well, let's have prayer, and we will carry on our day, and we look forward to experimenting with our newfound information. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're thankful that you give us clean starts. Every day is a fresh day. Every day is a clean start. And Lord, we're thankful that we can learn what we've learned, and all the different resources that we can keep learning. We can be lifelong learners, growing and getting closer to you and having a better health. So Lord, bless each one that's here. Bless all the families that are represented. And bless also the doctor and his wife, Sonia, and keep them in your care as well as they lecture and talk to different people around the country. And thank you, Lord. We just want to recommit ourselves to you now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.